What's good, YouTube? It's your boy ACK. We have another reaction today, bro. Film Theory dropped the video, you know what I'm saying? And not only did they drop the video, they dropped it on one of my favorite shows out right now, Invincible. So you know I gotta get on to that. But before I get to all that stuff right there, bro, y'all see that right there, bro? We had 998. That mainly passed 995. And I remember all my other videos I was saying at 995 I'll be doing my first stream, and that's gonna be today, bro. I know you. So whenever this is uploaded, whenever you're seeing this, the stream is going up this day after this upload, bro. So it'll probably be like, right now it's like 6, 7. The post probably be up by 8. I'll probably stream around 9, something like that. But no, whenever this video is dropped, I'm probably gonna be live. So if y'all see this, if y'all seen this video first day, bro, you gonna go post to the stream. You know what I'm saying? Say what's up. You know what I'm saying? We gonna play games, do reactions, whatever y'all trying to do. But with that being said, let's get to this film theory and see what it's hitting for. All right, y'all. This is film theory. Omni-Man was right? Question mark. From Omni-Man's point of view, I feel like obviously he was right, because you know what I'm saying, that's how you raise. But like,
you make me do this.
Like, it seems bad to us, because that's
so you can watch everyone around you die. Think, Mark. You'll live.
That's classic meme right there, bro. It's a classic meme. But I definitely don't think Omni-Man was right.
After 500 years.
Huh, it's not a bad question. Sounds like an episode of
Film Theory. Hey, that's tough. How they do that, like
Invincible. Film Theory, the
that's
show
cool.
that
I like
asks
that.
you to
That was
think,
cool.
Pat, think. Today we're diving into the high-flying superhero splattering world of Invincible
Mark Gregson,
on
man.
Prime Video. Yeah, believe it or not, there's an actual show here. It's not just a big old meme. Guess what? No, it is really darn good. It
really
follows
good,
the young,
bro.
up-and-coming superhero
Really
Mark
good.
Grayson as he learns to use his powers responsibly while also living up to the high expectations
Of his
set
dad.
by dear old dad Nolan. Sounds like your classic superhero origin story, right? Wrong.
Yeah.
You see, Daddy Dearest has himself a bit of a dark side. Even though
A
he's the
bit.
Earth's strongest hero, Omni-Man, underneath that friendly exterior, Nolan is not the benevolent superhuman people think he is. You see, Nolan is a Viltrumite, a species of
Basically a Super
long-lived,
Saiyan, the
incredibly
Saiyan.
powerful aliens that believe in survival of the fittest. They killed off millions of their own people until only the strongest survived. From there, they went on to form an empire that wants to take over the entire galaxy. In other words, Nolan came
But did
to
they have to
Earth
do that,
not
though?
to save humanity, but to conquer it, to subjugate it, preparing it for assimilation into his mustachioed alien empire. He starts this process by murdering the world's greatest heroes, the Guardians
First
of the Globe.
episode,
And by
mind
the
you.
end of the first season, his son Mark is the only thing capable of stopping him. And let's just say that that family intervention doesn't go so well. And this is where the meme we all know and love comes in. When Omni-Man finally takes a break
Mark.
from pummeling his son, he tries one last time to get Mark to understand his position.
You're fighting so you can watch everyone around you die. Think,
Yeah.
Mark.
I mean, they do live longer than regular people, huh?
Everything you know.
I get
will
that,
be
but
gone. What will you have after 500 years?
You see, Mark is half human like his mom and
Half
half Viltrumite
Viltrumite
like his dad. He will live longer than anyone he knows, long enough that his current relationships will feel like an
Useless.
insignificant blip in time. It's an interesting perspective that our weak, short-lived human brains can't really understand. So today I want to try.
I mean, when you
and
think about it like that, it makes
understand
more sense, huh?
what exactly would living that long do to you? And more importantly, what would it do to your brain? If we fast forward 1,000 years,
Yeah, I don't
after
wanna
the
live
life
500
Mark
more years.
currently knows has crumbled to dust multiple times over, will he develop the same mindset as Nolan? Is he fated to become a jaded, unempathetic superhuman? Season 2 has already given us a glimpse of countless worlds where Mark has turned to the dark side.
Yeah.
People of Earth, the more you resist, the worse this gets.
So is it only a matter
like
of
that.
time
Yo, I
before
love
Mark
Invincible,
succumbs
bro.
to the very same fate in this timeline? Keep your heads on straight, loyal theorists. It's time to answer this age-old, old-age question. Just to be clear before we jump in, we know that the universe of the Invincible TV show is separate from that of the comics.
It is?
And some of the events that we reference from the comic canon might not happen in the same way as the show, if they even happen at all. We'll only be using comic stuff to build off of points coming from the show. This is film theory, after all. Cool?
Wait,
Cool.
they're
So
not
to kind of
connected?
head this one off at the pass, we should note that
I know they're not
Omni-Man
exactly the
isn't a
same, but
human.
like,
He's a Viltrumite, so despite appearing human, his body isn't going to act the exact same way.
The older we get, the slower we age. You'll live for thousands of years.
Same thing for Mark.
That's
Despite
horrible,
being
bro.
half human, Nolan says that his
Viltrumite
alien
is,
DNA is so potent
strong,
that Mark
yeah.
is almost purely Viltrumite.
Yep.
Viltrumite DNA is so pure, you're nearly full-blooded.
But because we here at Theorist HQ don't have ourselves access to papers and studies related to Viltrumite
Hey,
brain chemistry, we're just gonna have to move
That's
forward in
funny.
this episode assuming that they're gonna act in a way that's similar to humans. Let it be known, that's not me just making assumptions for the sake of an episode. Clearly their DNA is compatible enough to produce children like Mark. You see, scientists define a species purely based on reproductive compatibility. Can two creatures mate successfully with each other to get viable, fertile offspring? If yes, then hey, they're the same species. If no, or if the offspring offspring turns out to be infertile, then they're going to be listed as different species.
So what about
now,
liger?
I'm not going to go so far as to say that Viltrumites are humans.
How is that species?
I'm not, but the official handbook actually will. You see, the official handbook of the Invincible universe expressly calls out in their science and world building section that Viltrumites at one point had human-like lifespans, and that somewhere, roughly 1 million years ago, they likely shared a common ancestor as evidenced by their biology.
How?
So all of that, plus the existence of a half-human-like Mark, and the fact that he's shown to have kids in the comics, proves that there's enough genetic similarity between these super aliens and us lowly Earthlings to draw at least some conclusions.
I know some of the comics.
Natural development. So
I know that part.
Let's look at how old age tends to affect the brain. One thing that's pretty clear.
If you know, you know. That's all I'm gonna say about that part.
I do love your mother.
Like a pet. That's crazy.
She's more like a pet.
That is so crazy. But that's understandable.
Subreddit to answer that one, friendo. Here's the thing. Neuroscience tells us that as brains grow older, our capacity to feel empathy actively declines.
Because you're going to do a lot of this BS in this world.
Unchanging lump of gray matter. It actually evolves as we age. And sadly, it's not evolving for the better. Consider this. Your brain has around 100 billion neurons. The way we get smarter is for those neurons to form new connections or synapses with the others around it. Now, the younger you are, the more new synapses your brain's going to form. A newborn baby brain forms synapses at a rate of over 1 million per second. In fact, a baby's brain overproduces synapses in those early days. As you get older, though, your brain learns that not all synapses are equally valuable. It goes back and it starts to focus on the ones that really matter the most, causing the important synapses to strengthen and just outright pruning the connections that don't make sense to keep. The whole thing is like creating a fancy
they be putting in work in these film theories, bro.
I bet the wild bush of your brain is getting trimmed down
like
into a beautiful
stuff.
swan plant thing. Don't get too excited about that swan sculpture, though. Unlike the Viltrumite society, killing off the weaker synapses, it ain't making your brain stronger and stronger
they just straight boxing,
it makes it efficient, sure, but it also makes it less flexible. Imagine for an instant that your brain is made out of plastic. The younger you are, the harder that plastic is, so it's easier to change and mold. This is the concept of neuroplasticity, the idea that the brain can remain flexible.
Oh nah, they going in with this one.
Though, that plastic brain
they going in.
Cool off and get hard. It becomes rigid. As a wise musician once wrote, your brain gets smart, but your head gets dumb. The long and short of all of this is that over time, your brain's neuroplasticity gets weaker and weaker, and that has a direct effect on your capability to learn new things.
Not learn,
but like,
why
older people have a hard time learning new languages, or
yeah,
understanding their grandkids' TikToks, or enjoying the finer artistic merits of Skibbity Toilet and figuring out how a cell phone
when you get older, you get hard-headed.
If a person seems set in their ways, well, that's partially because their brains are less able to process new information and implement neural change.
Now I got a reason.
It's true for relationships as well. Technically, we get worse at making friends as we age because our brains aren't flexible enough to accept new connections,
wow.
neurally and personally. Understanding the emotional needs of those around you, it's a lot of work for your brain. You have to have enough neural connections to handle that sort of mental load.
That's crazy.
Hence why some elderly people tend to act less empathetic to the needs of others. And that is what I suspect that we're seeing with Omni-Man. He's been
having
caught
no
in a
sense.
perpetual grumpy old man phase for millennia.
There's a dragon behind you.
I'm on vacation.
So,
that's funny.
Is Mark fated to become just like his father because of how old his brain's gonna become? Well, Nolan's argument is that
you'll outlast every fragile, insignificant being on this planet.
He said,
you'll live to see this world crumble to dust and blow away.
So,
bro, the voice actor was in his bag, bro.
Where that leads us. In my research, I couldn't find an exact age for Omni-Man, but we do know that he lasts for, quote, thousands of years. We also know, based on the official handbook, that Immortal, another superhero, is well over 3,000 years old. So let's just go off of that number and estimate that Nolan is 3,000. The average human lifespan right now in the U.S. is
Abraham Lincoln, by the way.
for males and 80 for females. Assuming Nolan and Debbie got married when she was 20, that would leave roughly 60 years for them to spend together. And while that might seem like a lot from our perspective, let's look at it from Omni-Man's. That 6-decade span would literally constitute a measly 2% of his total life. But what's that really mean? Well, to understand that, let's translate it into equivalent terms for a human. Converting that 2% to a typical human lifespan, that would be the equivalent of
1.6, bro.
1.6 years of your life with someone. That is 10 times less than the lifespan of a dog or a cat. You know goldfish, that stereotypical pet that dies and gets flushed down the toilet? Even they live at least 10 years on average. Even a hamster with its 2-year average lifespan would have itself more substantial time commitment. And again, not to say that Omni-Man has a point, but he does kind of have a point when he says,
hey, film theory, I gotta watch out for you.
But
you sound a little crazy, but I ain't gonna lie to you.
That's not him being cruel, that's him being generous from his perspective. And you're telling me that in 3,000 years he's only had himself the one kid? No wonder he's grumpy and depressed.
That is true.
His superpower is celibacy.
That is true. Ooh.
No, wait, never mind. His greatest superpower is that. Definitely that. Let me tell you, loyal
First
viewers,
episode,
I
bro.
almost felt every single hit from Omni-Man in that brutal scene, thanks to the sponsor for today's video, Samsung.
Hey,
Their
yeah.
brand new 98-inch QADC QLED 4K TV. When Samsung first approached us about doing this sponsorship and told us about this thing, gotta admit, I was a bit
I do need a new TV. Let me listen to this, man.
98-inch TV,
Let me listen to this.
Massive. Would it even
I need
be
me a
able
new
to fit through the
TV.
front door? Legitimately, I was concerned that it might be a bit too big.
Nah, I
You can have too much of a
Pause.
good thing after all. But I gotta say, after getting one for ourselves and
The
then
boys,
having it
I love
in
the
living room
boys,
for the
bro.
past week, it's actually a really
That's not crazy.
solid fit. Takes up way less space than I initially thought. It's also surprisingly
I need
thin.
me a
with
new
super
TV,
slim
bro,
design that's
but-
only like 2 inches deep. And you don't actually need as much room as you might think to get the most out of this picture.
Look at this thing. It is a monster. It's actually
Bully
got
Butcher.
the largest and highest quality super giant screen on the market right now. We've actually been watching The Boys recently
Yes, sir.
for research on a future theory, and the
Ooh,
show
I
just
can't wait to
looks
see that one.
incredible. This TV makes it feel
Can't wait to
like
see that
I'm
one.
sitting in a movie theater in my own home. And this screen isn't just big. Samsung actually built in AI upscaling technology that makes
Yo, AI.
everything look better and more crisp and reduces noise at these large sizes. They actually call it the supersized picture enhancer. There's
my.
also some crazy sci-fi sounding technology mixed in there, like the neural quantum processor, which makes everything look bright and crisp and detailed.
It's
I'm
weird-
not
it's
sure
weird seeing
how
his,
much of
like,
it is
putting
actually
the
coming
face to the
through
voice
on
all the
camera
time.
'cause
I ain't
we're
gonna
filming
lie.
screens within screens, but
I'm used to seeing
trust
him
me,
be
sitting here
animated.
standing here right now, it is crisp. And all of this is
Kinda
without
creep
even
me out a little
mentioning
bit.
how good this thing sounds. I feel like at this point in my life, I have to read more television than I actually listen to, because you have to turn on closed captions for everything.
That's
'cause
me.
The speakers on so many TVs are just such low
Bro,
quality.
I can't
This
watch
guy right
TV
here
without-
has got
without
Dolby
captions on.
Atmos
I
speaker
ain't gonna lie.
technology built into it, which adds a layer of depth to the sound. That way you can hear it coming from up, down, and sideways, and it is just so different from
Bro,
anything
Homeland was
else.
getting
It also
pieced up in
reminds
that
me,
scene.
Samsung has also built in their new Smart Hub, which puts everything that you want to watch or play right in the forefront. I don't want to have to
W
spend
W
a lot
ad,
of
bro.
extra time
W
looking
ad.
for something that I actually
W
want to
ad.
watch when I could just show this guy, hey, I've got other things to do. I want to watch my show, not spend a lot of time looking for the show that I want to watch. So having a product in there that's like, hey,
W
you're
ad,
gonna
bro.
watch this and you're gonna enjoy it is just a game changer. All in all, I gotta say I was skeptical when I first heard about this television, but now, after trying it out for the last week, I can't imagine my home without it. If you want to upgrade your
Samsung
TV
got good
game,
TVs?
check out Samsung's Q.
What brand is known for TVs for real like that?
If you're interested, go check out Samsung.com. Not gonna regret it. Thanks again to Samsung for sponsoring
What
today's
brand is
video.
known for
And with
TV,
that,
y'all? Let me know in
Let
the
me
comments
turn
down
back
below,
into
bro.
a PNG tuber and dive back into my analysis.
That's what
of
this is
Invincible.
called?
So just like we don't tend to mourn our goldfish very long after it's given its ceremonial flush,
I'm on-
Omni-Man
no, mine
ain't
died.
gonna
I was
mourn
sick.
his wife all that much in
I
the
was
greater
mourning.
context of his incredibly long life. Making matters worse, though, is repeated grief. Science has shown that the more frequently we experience something, the less
less you care about
sensitive
it.
we become to
Yup.
it. The first jump scare of a scary game, huge reaction. Whoa, that was the
Whoa,
biggest
Outlast,
scare ever.
I was scared the whole
50th
game.
Jump scare of a game? Yeah,
That's not me for
not so
Outlast.
much.
I was
And honestly,
here.
it's the same thing with grief. Studies show that when you're exposed to death
I play
regularly, you
Outlast.
become desensitized to it. Your brain starts to acclimate to the flood of neurotransmitters associated with the
I feel like
emotion.
that's a
So if
society
Omni-Man
now.
is truly living life on Earth and seeing his loved ones
Some of the
wiped
death
out
going
every
around.
80 years or so, in 3,000 years, he's going to be seeing 40 generations of loved ones
Dang,
coming and going.
40
For a human to
generations?
experience that same thing, we'd have to see the passing of a generation every 2
That's
years.
crazy.
Imagine not being callous and blasé about it at that rate.
That
So
is
Mark
crazy.
is busy coming to terms with the first wave of people he'll lose to his prolonged lifespan. Dear old dad, he's been doing the same old song and dance for millennia. But it's not just old age and neuroplasticity
That shit's crazy, I
and
ain't gonna lie.
desensitization to grief and violence. It's also an issue of intelligence.
Yeah.
Not only is
You call him
Omni-Man
dumb?
outliving the people of Earth,
Oh,
he's
smarter.
also outlearning
Oh,
the
okay.
people of Earth with centuries of extra
Maybe I'm the one that's
information at his fingertips. He knows cosmic truths that humans would never be able to fathom. And he's
That
had
is true.
literal 1,000-year stretches to teach himself anything and everything he could possibly want. And again, research has shown that individuals with extremely high IQs tend to have
Like
themselves a
myself.
hard time relating to the people around them as a result. So
Yeah,
Omni-Man is
I agree.
that, but times 1,000.
And
literally,
me.
as he deals
I'm
with
like
more
Omni-Man.
intelligence than any human has ever had or ever will.
Other than me,
But we
obviously. Come
possibly
on.
see humans as equals if he's talking about conquering foreign planets, and we're all busy thinking about the latest season of Selling Sunset.
Ain't
In
nothing
short,
wrong with doing
Omni-Man
both.
is literally primed to be the exact person that we see in Invincible. He's a hyper-intelligent, godlike being surrounded by inferior life forms with significantly shorter lives and smaller brains. And worst of all,
Dang.
he's getting older, and his brain is becoming less
But he's
and
also
less
getting stronger
flexible,
too, right?
ensuring
When he
he is
older.
forever stuck in his ways. Which then begs the question that we started this whole thing off with: is there any hope for Mark? Sure, right now he's holding his ground to protect the human race, but if we were to fast forward 3,000 years for him, would Mark
Become
become
heartless.
just as cruel and heartless as his
You gotta
dear old
see.
dad? Well, believe it or not, but the answer actually comes down to another superhero on the roster.
Who?
In
Oh,
the lore of
Immortal?
the series, Viltrumites
Immortal.
aren't the only long-lived characters. Case in point, the Immortal. If you couldn't tell by the name, the Immortal cannot die.
That's
Or
Abraham
at least when
Lincoln.
he does die, it tends not to stick. He always comes back. The Immortal can heal from basically any wound, and he seems to never age. We see that the Immortal actually predates most of human
Abraham Lincoln,
civilization,
man.
gaining his powers back during the Bronze Age of 3300 BC before living out lifetimes as a medieval knight in 580, and even as President
Facts.
Abraham Lincoln in the 1860s.
That's so funny.
That's a weird creative choice.
Facts.
Anyway, considering he's been alive this long, you would expect him to fall into the same sorts of issues that Nolan
But
has.
he didn't.
Except the Immortal clearly
He look, he
isn't
is kinda
cruel
hard-headed,
or
though.
apathetic in the same way Nolan is. So what's the difference here? What's the X factor for the Immortal? And how is that going to apply to Mark? It actually boils
see.
down to three things. The first is the way that the Immortal's powers seem to work. While
he
Viltrumites
do-
like Mark and Nolan are long-lived and can heal from pretty bad injuries thanks to the smart atoms that are floating around in their bodies, they
Okay.
can't come back from fatal blows like the Immortal can. We see tons of Viltrumites dying both in the comics and in the show's flashbacks, but we see the Immortal come back from practically everything in a way that's much more akin to the classic healing factor that you see with other comic book superheroes. That means that he's constantly replenishing all the various subsets of cells within his
So
body,
what does that mean?
which would include the neurons.
Oh,
in his brain. Unlike
okay.
a typical human
So
or Viltrumite
his brain's still
where
flexible.
neurons tend to hit a wall before the numbers slowly decline, the Immortal's brain is constantly being replenished, meaning that it's
Tight.
always staying that nice, hot, moldable plastic. Like a youngster, the Immortal would be able to quickly adapt to changing circumstances, also explaining how he's able to master the hundreds of languages and cultures that he's lived through during his extended lifespan. This one, sadly, doesn't really apply to our Mark example, but it had to be called out because it is a significant factor in his success. The second factor that sets the Immortal apart from Nolan is his relationships. In the character handbook, it clearly states that the Immortal's relationships
people,
with other
yeah,
heroes
duplicate.
has given him a renewed passion for life and established closer connections
Yeah.
with friendships and teammates. He's
That boy
in
6'4".
partnership with Duplicate.
Sheesh.
He's leader of the Guardians of the Globe. The Immortal has a sincere kinship with the people around him, despite his incredibly advanced age. And this adheres to what we read about in real-life science.
Okay, that makes sense a little
The
bit.
factors that give people a greater sense of empathy deeper into their lives show time and time again that social interaction is key. Spending time with friends, building and maintaining social connections, they are some of the best things that you can do for your brain's health. It exercises that brain's empathy muscle. But if
Okay,
those
my
muscles
brain's
aren't
strong.
worked out,
Trust.
well, they start
Trust.
to atrophy and die. Case in point, Omni-Man, a loner who never truly buys into the whole team dynamic of the Guardians. He is sent by the Viltrumites to Earth, a forgotten foreign planet,
They are
and
solo.
he's stationed there alone. He's a sole soldier waiting for the right time to strike. He is isolated completely
That
on a
boy's
planet
plotting.
full of aliens. Even his cover job as
Plotting.
an author emphasizes this loneliness. He's not going into the office alongside a bunch of other co-workers. He's at home alone writing books. Every element of his existence has primed him to lack empathy. So Mark, spending time with William, Eve, and Amber, other superheroes like
help
the
him build
team
connections.
that is the sort of thing that's going to keep him
But he's still
grounded.
young, though.
Those relationships would presumably help him stay firmly rooted on the side of good and not join the evil space mustache empire years later. He is starting off with a good, solid foundation of empathy as a kid, which segues nicely into important point
what's
number
number three,
the
man?
most important thing that the Immortal and Mark share, being born
From
on
Earth.
The peak time for children to learn empathy is before the age of 9. And they
Oh,
learn it
they was
by
always
watching
fighting on,
others. As babies,
Viltrumites.
we can feel and respond to the emotions of our caregivers. As toddlers, we learn more about how others feel, and we might try to comfort them when they're upset. As we grow older, especially in preschool and early school years, we get better at understanding different emotions and realizing that people might see things differently than our perspective. By middle childhood, we become even more skilled at understanding others' feelings and needs.
Okay.
It keeps developing as we grow up. But
So
our
if he was on- if
foundational understanding
Grayson
of
was
it
from,
has to
I mean,
happen in
Nolan,
these early
from
childhood
Earth, it'd be
years.
different.
The Immortal, he was born a human. He grew up with the social customs and teachings of a human race where empathy is an important part of survival. Mark, same story. He has a compassionate human mother and a dad that, not naturally feeling himself, at
Me
least
no.
pretended to be for the sake of appearing normal to the outside world. As such, Mark, he shouldn't be stunted in his empathetic education as he grows older. By contrast, Nolan grew up on Viltrum.
Yeah,
A
they
whole
was
swaths of
straight
the
boxing
population were wiped out for
constantly.
being seen as too weak. As a result, he never
Straight
truly
boxing,
received
bruh.
that early childhood exposure to the concept of compassion and empathy. Ironically enough, a man who has the lifespan long enough to learn learn about anything can't truly embrace this one essential lesson
He missed
because
it
he
as a
missed it as a kid. That said,
That's
clearly
deep. I mean,
Nolan's
he look he
not
was
dumb.
learning though.
In a flashback to Mark's childhood, Debbie explains that as people grow older, they forget to experience
look he
the
was
joy and
learning.
excitement of the world around them.
Yo, watch
That
it too.
Children can be the vehicle for adults to remember all that. A way for them to feel empathy again and to see that life can truly be fulfilling and interesting. And the thing that finally breaks Omni-Man, Mark's answer to the very question that started us down this rabbit hole in the first place.
What will you have
I'll
after
have you, Dad.
500 years?
You, Dad. I still have you.
Sheesh,
It's Nolan's
that
love
boy,
for his
he
son
beat,
Mark over his sense
he
of
beat
duty
him
to the
bad.
Empire. This shred of empathy and compassion
Beat
that
him
finally
bad.
breaks through. That's what's so beautiful about this answer.
Eh,
Mark being the thing that
look at
grounds
him.
his father, that makes him have a change of heart. It isn't just a powerful piece of Invincible
said, "Go,
thematic
Mark, go."
storytelling. This is a real scientifically backed phenomenon. One that
yeah.
shows us that we're never too old to learn, to feel, to help others.
That's
that right
the way.
there, that is the true superpower. An emotional strength that can truly make you invincible. Unless
I see what you did there.
actually attacks you with a weapon, in which case, no, you're not. You're just done. But hey, that's
Bruh.
just a theory. Up
Film theory.
and cut.
Okay. So what do y'all think? Do y'all think Nolan? Do you think Nolan was kind of right, or do you think he was wrong? Like I said, it's all about perspective. You know what I'm saying? Like he said in the video, he came from a place where that's normal, so it makes more sense for him. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, from us, if you think he's right, you one of us. I don't. You need to be on. You need to be watched. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, obviously, from our perspective, he's wrong. You know what I'm saying? It's all about perspective, though. But like I said, both sides have some points. But yeah, he's wrong. He's wrong. With that being said, shout out to Film Day. Go there, patience from love. Hit that like button, hit that sub button too, bro. It's your boy ATK Reacts. Like I said in the beginning of the video, right now when this video is posted the same day, I probably will be live. I'm not sure when, but I probably will be live. You know, we out of here.